Hello and welcome to this episode of Paula's Run Club with me, Paula Radcliffe.
And me, Christopher Thompson.
And this is the second of our episodes from the Steve Cram Rutland training camp that we were at a couple of weekends ago now, wasn't it? Not this weekend, the weekend before that. Yes. We have breathing expert Jane Tarrant to share her wisdom on how to get better, more efficiency, I guess, from your breathing, isn't it? That was the biggest thing that she was trying to teach us, apart from running around with your mouth taped up, which I was a little bit sceptical about. We'll get to that later on. And Nick Hardy as well, who shares his wisdom on basically, I think he does a really good explanation of how the shoe technology works, how the S of the plate, as he termed it, combines with the foam to kind of get the maximum efficiency out of people's strides and to help propel them forwards. So those were really, really interesting to listen to. But let's get into the interview from Rutland. So this is from the Steve Cram Rutland Training Camp Part 2, and it is with Jane Tarrant, breathing specialist, and with Nick Hardy, shoe guru, we're going to call him.
That's what he calls him. That's what they call him on the camp.
Oh, is it? Oh, there we go.
Yeah, there you go.
So welcome to part 2 of the Steve Cram training camp. Paula's Run Club being welcomed here to get some chats and information and really explanations, I think, from the next two guests. So welcome to Nick Hardy, what we're going to call you, shoe guru.
Yeah, I've been called worse, so we'll stick with that one.
And Jane Tarrant, who is, well, as it says on the shirt, breath optimization, basically trying to help us to get the best out of ourselves in life or just in running from the way that we
life, yeah, as humans, in whatever you choose to put that towards.
So, should we start off? Where should we start? We'll go ladies first, maybe. No, we'll start with it.
Have you been called a lady before? You said yes.
That was one of the things. We'll stick to shoe guy.
Yeah, we stick to shoe guru.
Okay, then we'll go with the shoes, just because it might take a little bit longer to explain. And I do think that, having sat in on a couple of your talks at the training camps, you explain really well how the carbon plate revolution kind of works and the premise behind it.
Yeah, it's all come together very quickly, but it was one of the things that it started, again, 1998, there's brands doing carbon plates there, but I think it's a really happy sort of combination and concoction of three factors. So the increased geometry within shoes, which has been aided by the increase in the benefits and changes to material tech. So foams have become lighter, bouncier, springier, so basically we can put more in it. And if we've got more of this big foam, then we need to actually stabilize it. So the misconception with carbon plates is that they propel you forwards. They actually don't. They just stabilize and direct the energy to your big toe. So it's stabilizing that big soft marshmallow, directing it forwards to the big toe, where the change in geometry gives you a big rocker to the front of the shoe, and it just rolls you forwards. So we get with that sort of constant momentum, essentially, with carbon shoes and that higher stack height.
So by the geometry, you mean the heel to toe drop?
Little bits with the heel to toe drop, but not as much as the actual stack height itself.
Right.
So stack height being the amount of midsole cushioning. Okay. Say back in the day, just had Steve on, when he was running, it was racing flats, and flats were essentially that. They were just really thin plimsolls. And now we've got racing shoes, and they're leading to all these marathon times where they've had to put a limit on it. Can't make them higher than 40 mil. So that's sort of really changed how it's developed. And if you've got that big platform, you then get a big rocker on the forefoot just to roll you forwards, and it changes the pivot point. So the pivot point being coming back from the end of your toe, back towards more of the ball of the foot, where it's in contact with the ground.
What? How much has this revolution changed things, in your opinion? If you could, I don't necessarily try and quantify it in an actual number, but how much of an impact do you think this has had?
I think massively to the whole, sport of running at any level. Like, we've seen race times plummet in every distance on the track. And I know you can't wear these super shoes on the track, but it's come from training as well. And then it's completely changed the mass market, because the shoes were really designed at the sort of your 2-hour marathon runners, 2:20, people chasing world records there. And it's only now that there's models coming in where the 4-hour runner will really benefit from that shoe. And it's aimed at that gait and that sort of foot strike as well.
So what's the difference there on that? Because they've both got carbon in them, right? So what are we talking about in a difference between an athlete trying to run sub 2 hours and someone trying to run 4 or 5 hours? What's the shoe differences that athletes should look at?
I think primarily the stability. We've all seen that athlete walk to the start line of a race, and
we've all been there.
Yeah, you try and walk in these shoes, and they're going all over the shop. And if someone's not really that stable, they're going to, I joke and say, they're going to run 27 miles because their ankles are falling in that extra bit. So the stability makes a big difference, and I think also then the how aggressive the shoes are for that rocker. So how aggressive is that rocker? Is it something that's quite subtle? So favouring more of the sort of the heel strikers, and without sort of lumping everyone in the same box, more of the 4 or 5 hour marathon guys, versus then the super efficient and tuned and skilled and strong 2-hour marathon runners, where they're able to have a bit more of an aggressive plate that's stiffer on a more aggressive geometry and rocker, because they're pushing through it a lot quicker.
So what do you mean by that in terms of the can you? Yeah,
is it linked to the efficiency?
Yeah, so the angle of the plate, how curved it is, because it's typically in most shoes like an S-shaped plate. So the plate is closer to closer underneath the heel than it is at the forefoot. So it's closer to the ground on the outside of the shoe, the bottom of the shoe, in the forefoot, and closer to the heel. So that curve sort of flattens and then sort of rolls through, directs the pressure to.
So the goal is to spend as little time on the ground.
Yeah.
As
So
possible,
it just speeds the foot
you
through.
with that.
Just
so I'm
quickens
interested,
that
'cause
turnover.
first time, when the shoes first started to come in, it was very much road racing, marathon. It was all aimed at kind of the Breaking 2 project, and it came in with that. In the last year, we've seen 800 metre times on the track really come down. Is that also carbon plates? Because it's less foam coming in.
Yeah, it's less foam, a stiffer shoe. But also that race performance is the icing on the cake of the training week.
Yeah.
So if these athletes can wear the shoes that are giving them more cushioning, and they're more efficient, and they can be stronger throughout the training week, then that performance is going to get quicker. I think going back to even the start of Thommo's career, shoes changed massively, and it's like how long you had to wait between sessions probably changed massively from the start to the end of your career, because your body was just so battered at the start when there wasn't as much cushioning. Now we're running on these big cushion platforms. You can do training sessions of 20 miles, double tempos, like this double threshold sort of days. And now where we have to wait 2 or 3 days, people are waiting 6 hours and bowl of cornflakes like between.
It's interesting because we've seen such a revolution in 800 up in times. That's been quite visible, and maybe a little bit in 400, maybe more the hurdles than the flat 4. But I'm conscious that sprinting, not so much. But I haven't really looked into sprint spikes and how they've evolved. But when I did, it was brought up earlier. I've held Usain Bolt's spike that he won in Beijing. It's the most rigid, lack of foam piece of machinery I've ever seen, and and he obviously ran his world records in that. And the tweaks that have been made around that, I kind of, when you mention comments of how it makes your foot fly forward, why are we not seeing quite the improvement in sprinting, do you think? Or it's just, they're just not as good as Usain, I guess.
I mean, a little bit of both.
But you get what I mean, yeah.
The main thing is, though, what shape was Usain's spike?
It was curved.
Yeah. So what that's done is, with sprinting, they don't strike on the heel. In 100 metres, they barely strike on, like, their heel doesn't touch the ground. They want to be on that 4-foot aggressive position all the way through. And those people that were in the conversation earlier, this 3-joint extension, we're holding that ankle really stable. And so that's one of the things, that shape. he's striking straight on the ball of his foot and propelling off. There's no foam in that shoe that you mentioned, because foam, again, is a soft material and it will never return 100% of the energy you put through it. You'll always lose a little bit of that energy. And the marathon foams and technology, we're talking about product that has like 93% energy return in this foam. And so there's 7% lost. So what they're after with a sprint spike is the most direct, rigid, I'm going to push all the way down into the shoe, and everything I push into it, I'm going to get back. And I'm going to get over that line as quick as possible.
So the change in spikes aren't necessarily positive then for the sprinters, maybe. To be fair, I haven't really held, but they look like they've got something in them anyway.
There'll be a little bit, and I think over the last few major championships, I've almost started seeing some of the sprint spikes, the hurdles athletes, they're actually the winners of on the podium. They're wearing middle distance spikes because of the way that curve is, and with this super bouncy foam, they can just flex that plate a little bit as they strike on the forefoot. There's a bit of cushioning there. That's then getting them over that next barrier.
Especially the 400 metre hurdles, isn't it? But the other thing is, I think over the last couple of years, and it's a bit unfair to throw this one at you, but I do think they're modifying the tracks to work with the spikes. So they kind of complement each other. And that's why we're seeing the times keep improving. But I think the biggest difference with the shoes in the marathon is that get to 30k and your legs just don't feel as dead. So yes, the plate is helping with efficiency, but it's really helping with a breakdown of muscle and that soreness and that just things starting to become more and more inefficient, which I think is my way of trying to bring Jane in to talk about efficiency, because that's what you're trying to get to with the breathing, right? To have us breathing in the most efficient and natural way.
Absolutely.
And not overthinking it.
Absolutely. And also dealing with one of the words you use, which is misconceptions. So my real bugbear is that we've had basically no education. If we have picked up some, it's probably wrong. It's probably misinterpreted by someone somewhere along the way and then rubbed it out, to the rest of it. And it's just that concept that we've never really been very curious about something so fundamental to every single part of our life. And this is affecting our health, whether it's our mental and physical health. It's affecting our performance, it's affecting our recovery. And I think also we've come in the more recent years to really think about recovery a lot more. What you're eating during that time, what you're doing in terms of whether you're using biohacking methods or whatever rest ways you're doing it. And we're not really thinking about breathing. And I mean, it frustrates me because I go to the sauna quite regularly and I see championship footballers in my sauna, and I am regularly being like, aren't you on like a recovery day? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, are you aware that you're impacting your diaphragm right now and therefore maybe not recovering as well as you could be? And they're like, no. And I'm like, have you ever had any breathing education whatsoever? They're like, no. I'm like, okay.
Do you say that's probably why you're in the championship, not the Premiership?
I'd love to say that was the difference.
So explain how the sauna affects the diaphragm.
So in the sauna, for example, we want to be using our diaphragm, not compromising it. And when it gets quite hot, one of the things they'll do is they'll drop their head down to get out of the heat, which is completely fair enough. But they'll curve their back and they're just like, ugh. Some of them are on their phones occasionally, but generally it's just like this. And they're just collapsed down. And I'm like, well, if you were to hip hinge and then go down, you can protect your diaphragm whilst bringing your head down. But because you've had no breathing education, because you don't have any awareness of your diaphragm, or even realise that your human breathing outside of your intense training, whether it's running, football, whatever, the point is you're not really thinking about those multiple tens of thousands of breaths that you're taking that could be making like all these incredible marginal gains. And if we are going into sort of compromised diaphragm, I named a spot on the body basically called the D spot. I thought it was about time we had an extra spot on the body. So just about 3 fingers down from the split of the ribs is the D spot. And as you breathe in at rest, sitting here correctly, I would be able to move that away from me and then back in. And there shouldn't be upper chest movement, there shouldn't be belly movement from the belly button, no matter what you've learned from yoga or whatever that you might use during a specific example. And if our D spot doesn't work, i.e. when we're doing this, which is why I'm not sitting in these chairs all like, chilled. When we're doing... Got that in there. when we're down like this, it compromises our diaphragm, and then we end up using our backup muscles, so our belly muscles and our up here. So these are our sort of survive muscles, not our thrive muscles. And that just seems a bit wasteful, but also it trains an over-breathing pattern. Same being if I just slightly go into this, and especially in running, you've all got friends that are runners that hold their shoulders forward like this. And this is kind of dropping your pecs over your diaphragm, which means you're then going to breathe in here and up here. So you're using two parts rather than one part. So from an efficiency point of view, just as a human, whether you're running or not, that just doesn't really make sense. But the most important part about this is what that means from a science point of view. Like, how does it really impact us? Why does it matter if we breathe more, louder, through our mouth, upper chest, shallow, etc.? And this is all about carbon dioxide, and it's the gas that gets overlooked because most people are like, get oxygen into my body and then I'll be gold. And it's actually about looking after kind of the backstage crew, that, you know, the thing that no one thinks about, because oxygen's like an actress and they can't shine without the support of what's behind. So you can't get oxygen to your cells, to your muscles, to your brain as efficiently if you're over breathing and dumping your CO2 a little bit too quickly. So it is a waste gas, but it's got a job to do before it leaves. And it's a little bit like having sort of red London buses driving around your blood, and they collect the oxygen from your lungs, which I consider a tree, so from the leaves of the tree. And then as they're driving down, you want like a motorway or 3-lane road. And you want little porters that are there to kind of open the doors and let the oxygen get off. So let's say there's 6 doors at a time. Now, if I'm an overbreather all the time, I'm going to take overbreathing into my running. It's not like I'm sort of like this generally all day and then I'm just like, oh, yeah, absolutely, total efficiency, like perfect. It doesn't work quite like that. You're always going to have some sort of decline within that running breathing too. And that might just be your CO2 tolerance is too low and you're struggling to kind of slow your breath down, you're struggling to kind of keep it nasal, or even sort of you might be restricted in your ribs or something as well, or your perception. Now, when that overbreathing happens, you're taking that motorway or 3-lane road down to a dual carriageway or 2-lane road. And that means that you've got the same number of buses, you can be training your VO2 max incredibly, you can be having loads of oxygen in you, but you're not delivering the damn thing efficiently. So it's very, very simple basic science. And I only teach in sort of non-scientific language because this is kind of what we need to be teaching our 5-year-olds as well as ourselves. And this is very much that if you get stuck there because your CO2 tolerance declines over time, at part way down you'll be like, oh yeah, I'm a bit stressed, I'm a bit anxious, and yeah, whatever. Continue that a bit more and suddenly you're ping-ponging between these two little close walls, and that's when you're getting panic attacks, that's when you're getting, you know, intensity in terms of allergies, so you're really struggling with your allergies because you're not really using your nose anymore, you're gasping through the mouth, you're taking all this unfiltered air through your mouth, viruses, bacteria, particles, allergens, it's cold air, it's irritating air, your lungs aren't performing as well, and all of this is because you just humaned in a way that you slightly declined. And even just like we met last year, and you were sitting there and you were like, yeah, I've noticed my posture, you know, has kind of gone ever since I've had kids and stuff. And it's just dropping that little bit. It's just that slight thing without awareness. Yeah. And that's going to impact, you know,
what was
everything.
That you said? What was that thing you said about pulling your chest forward? Remind me again that you said like in terms of. Oh, it's going to bug me now. It's really bad. Because I can't remember.
In order to hold yourself up.
Yeah, in terms of rather than when you think it was the posture one when you said rather than do that. That's a lot of effort.
Yeah.
Think from a different angle. What was it again?
So you don't want to put your breasts out. You want to kind of show off a necklace. So there's a kind of elegance, a sort of a tall, strong, elegant ballerina, for example. The most important thing is actually feeling confident, feeling good about yourself. Am I able to stand up here? Yeah. So if you're there and you're kind of going, all right, if I stand tall, first of all, we could actually be impacted by a sort of a trapezius across the back that's a bit tight. So I do a release with people that just activates all 3 layers, stops them being kind of not a teamwork, and allows them to pick up. But also, once you've got that unlocked, oh, that was easy. And then once you've done that, you're like, right, well, if I feel sort of not quite confident, I'm tall, but I'm not confident. As soon as I'm confident, there's that slight Just a very slight change. And it's about dialing into the language of what we associate with our bodies. And runners particularly can find that they're kind of curving forward, that they've kind of given up, they're feeling dreadful. And we kind of need to fake it if we're not feeling it, just from I want to feel good and I'm going to feel strong, or I remember that language that works for me. And so giving us these moments, and then also in terms of recovery, which is absolutely vital, I am really on a mission to kind of ban this as a concept.
Is anyone doing it?
Now, it was interesting because you think, oh, it's only in football and rugby maybe, and they have been kind of told to do this by certain coaches, and it is not helpful in the slightest because it's actually locking up the back of your ribs here. So rather than be able to expand, opening here, I'm locked up like this.
Yeah.
And I'm in the side ribs and front ribs only. So I can't even get to a kind of optimal recovery breath where I can really pull in a really efficient manner. And so actually I saw, because it was Harry Judd that was on your show earlier, and I'd actually met him once, didn't actually know who he was, and asked him if he was quite good at drumming. And he said, oh, yeah, actually in a band that's quite well known. And I was like, oh, really? And he's like, yeah, McFly. And I was like, yeah, whatever.
Hi, Harry.
You might remember me. I was 19. I'm now 37.
Same as Steve.
He was in my car for some reason, but work-wise. So it was one of those ones where I was like, I saw him and I looked on his Instagram and I was like, oh, cool, look into his marathon journey. And then I saw this and I thought, screen grab, was going on my Instagram later.
So this is the warm-up you're talking about?
No, this is when people kind of get really tired. They'll either do this, which we know is bad, or we'll...
That's because you just can't stand up anymore.
Yeah. But that's the point. But rather than curving over, we want to hip hinge to keep that.
So is it better to fall on the floor then?
No, it's better to do this. Do this. Don't, because in football and things they say, oh, it looks weak and you don't want to do that. Rugby, they get told not to.
Yeah.
But down like this is good. Or even better, up like this if you can get your arms around you. So again, if you're slim, great. If you're a rugby player, it's a bit more difficult. You're going to need a friend to do that for you. And then if you do this, which is what some people do, they're like, oh, you see. And then we're going through the mouth, and when we're going into a few little leaves here rather than an entire canopy that's down here, and just simple stuff.
So I just want to take you back to the bit where you said, think yourself confident.
Yeah.
Is that a technique that people can use at that point in thinking in the marathon when you're really starting to fatigue, you're starting to lose your form? I can remember being told just keep running tall. Similar kind of mindset. Is that something that you can do? Because I know breathing rate is very linked to effort, isn't it? So it's one of the things that 35 breaths per minute is an easy run for everybody, whereas heart rate is not in the same for everybody and transferable.
So it's interesting because there's so many layers here, and I'm obviously trying to keep this really quick. So things we want to look at is, first of all, trapezius. Is your trapezius kind of impacting your posture, bringing you forward and then making your head go up? So I do a quick trapezius release, which I'll very simply tell you, which is to keep the hips straight, head straight, and go in 3 different layers. First one is at the belly. We're swinging around the body without any strain, just going to a natural stopping point, 4 or so each side. Keeping your head forward, your hips
so you can't
forward.
move your head.
No. And then you go up to the shoulders and you do the second layer of the trapezius, nice and gentle, nothing to strain. And then up to the forehead. There we go. Well, crack on, you know. But you have to do all 3 layers, otherwise it doesn't work.
Don't go too far, right?
And then that's it. So it's 1 on the belly, 1 on the shoulders, 1 on there. And all it's doing is activating the muscles and getting to work as a team again. When you do that,
really
suddenly that sort of feeling to kind of pull up. No. So it's very gentle. You don't force it. It's just activating the muscles. And then as you stand, suddenly, oh, I'm straight backed. And actually that's not so much effort anymore. So you can pull it through. And when you've done that, then you're like, right, that's a good starting point to run. If you haven't released your trapezius...
But if you're in the marathon already,
well, when
does that technique help you at that point?
You could do it to help actually sort of feel, if you're feeling a bit like, oh, you could sort of actually do this. But the second of all is you should have done it at the beginning already.
Yeah.
And most people won't have done, hence why I mentioned it. Once you then get into it, it's like, right, how is my posture? Where is the breath coming? And I sort of talk about like 1/3, 2/3, 3/3. 1/3 is on the front here, this movement for walking. Nice and simple. If you've got your hands around you on your bra strap kind of thing at the top there, not wearing a bra, but you know, you get the point.
Round about here.
Inspired by Charlie Dimmock when I was a kid, I think. So when you have the fingers there, which would be around the bra strap, and you're pulling into the front ribs there, that's just walking, nice and simple. When you're running, you want 2/3, so you're going into the side ribs. When you're recovering, and I like to call this like the NOS button. So if you've ever seen like Fast and the Furious, there's that moment where they just want to go vroom and win the cars off the other people. You can't do that for very long, and you have to time it right. And that's about these back muscles going into your thumbs. And this is a case of going right, recovery in and out. So if you're actually on a run, you can pull in a couple of recovery breaths to really draw it down and recenter and get your posture up. And then you can go back to your 2/3. So you've got 1/3 walking, 2/3 running, 3/3 recovery. And that's as soon as you stop as well. It's none of this business. It's like, this is where the hard bit starts. This is like the moment you're like, and that's where posture matters, control matters, CO2 tolerance matters, and the ability to train that while you're still, before you start trying to run on it. So loads of people that I meet, whether it's here or professional athletes, they have some restriction on their perception of what they can achieve, what's possible. They get my hands on me, like even the pro footballers, and they're like, oh, wow. And I'm like, yeah, you can do that too. Just no one's shown you yet. And so I obviously get my hands on them.
Is this in the sauna again?
Yeah, the sauna. I'm like, I've literally got like, okay, they're about to get out. I've got a 4-minute pitch here and 1 minute to get hands on, and then I'm out.
So, who are they?
Well, I can't decay.
I'm joking.
Plus, I wouldn't bloody know who they are. Paula's the only person I've known that's actually a pro athlete that I'd actually recognise. I mean, I sat next to you the first night. I was like, so what's your name? Everyone else in the room is like, and he's like,
Yeah, so I got we're doing a session this morning, and you asked me if I'd run before. Couple of times.
Tell me, you got told off earlier. What was it about?
Did I?
Yeah, you said, oh, I'll leave it till later. But
Oh
I got told
yes,
off on the run.
no. So I finished, and I literally, I was working hard this morning. For those, I was trying hard, and I finished one of the 75-second rep, and I went down. So I went, Jane will tell you off for doing that. So I was like, oh, you were. So these people were listening. So I was like, I was just hunched over.
You weren't.
What was I meant to do? Like this?
Not overextending. Straight back. Yeah.
No hands
Well,
on head.
if you come to the thing, you'd know.
You do that with your hands on your head.
You do what? This?
You don't want to do that.
No.
It should not be up here.
Okay, all right.
But actually, it was really funny because I did the entire training this morning. Bearing in mind, I don't run. I play rounders and I climb and I do a little bit of elliptical. But I decided to tape up my mouth like I do with my normal training and then open up the nose with the dilator. And I went for it. And then I saw him and he went past me and I was like, yeah, you better follow, like, go past me. Otherwise, I'm going to have to take this damn thing up. I don't want to be a runner.
It is a good way of saying I don't want to talk to you, having actually taped your mouth.
It's also a good way to get really weird looks in the gym. But people were like, so why are you wearing it? I was like, well, first of all, leadership, because, I've just told you all you should be nose breathing. I'm telling you, like, how you breathe matters. I'm going to close up my mouth and prove to you that we can actually do this entire exercise like that. So I think it's important to lead by actually showing. But second of all, my teeth are slightly forward. I have an impacted airway and everything, which we can talk about later if you want to. So my nose actually does feel a bit too small for exercise. But during the day, I've managed to train it so I can use it. I'm no longer a chronic mouth breather, no longer a snorer, no longer struggle with this upper chest anxious breathing. And so you can retrain your deteriorated habits as a human, but you can also get to the point where you can optimize and hack where you have a structural impact that you need to work on.
So just for clarity though, you would have run a quicker workout without your mouth taped?
No, because I would have over-breathed and then gassed out really quickly because I'd have dumped my CO2, my muscles would have been really tired, and I'd have been like, I'm done.
But the end result of doing it is to get yourself to a position where you can actually use both.
So I don't want to use my mouth.
Ever?
Well, not really, because otherwise it's going to make everything feel more sort of inflamed. I'm going to feel more like dumping. So my mouth would literally be used, if I went into something that's way past my abilities, I would nose breathe, dump through the mouth once, just to bring the CO2 level just down enough to be tolerable again. Then I go back to nose breathing in and out. And people go, but isn't it about sort of what you learn at school, in through the nose, out through the mouth? And I'm like, well, not really, because you're just making a fake nostril on your face, and you're not re-moistening and re-warming the nose so it can re-moisten and re-warm the air on the way back in. So you're kind of like circumventing in order to get a rhythm, but you've got your tongue in the wrong place. And they're like, your tongue? So, like, okay, cool, we'll start from basics. And your tongue should be in the roof of your mouth. And if you want to try it now. So you say N or N for no. So the flat tip of the tongue is in the roof of the mouth, pulled back slightly from the front teeth. And in that N position, you then lever up the rest of it to seal against the roof of the mouth as best you can, preferably inside the teeth. Now, some people, like myself, have a very narrow impacted airway, so it's kind of a little bit more origami to get up there sometimes. But you pull it up, and then once it's up, it's going to hold open this airway much better, whilst closing off this airway, even if you start opening your lips. Close your lips, relax your face, and breathe through it really calmly and quietly, and just notice how easy it feels. And then to compare it, keep your lips closed, now drop your tongue heavy to the bottom of your mouth. How does it feel? A little bit restricted, a little bit faster, a little bit tighter. And that is what we're living with. So mouth breathers and then they go, oh, nose breathing is really hard. And you're like, well, yeah, because you've just like not picked up your tongue. And they're like, but that doesn't feel right at all. And I'm like, yeah, it's just, it's out of position. And that's why when, as a child, we start to be really impacted in our airways, and why we're seeing such benefits of those who kind of have like sort of, African background that have this incredible airway that's just like, they've got the amazing starting point versus somebody who just doesn't have the same genetics and is starting from a slightly smaller space. And then you put into kind of bad orthodontics and the fact that we've got tongue ties we're missing, and the fact that we don't ever get told that nose breathing is important and we shouldn't ideally be mouth breathing. And then we live in sort of toxic environments with allergens and all sorts of stuff. And we wonder why we're constantly having problems with adenoids and tonsils and ear infections and, crooked teeth and all the stuff that we've just completely normalized, let alone sleep apnea, snoring, etc. And then we try and take this into sport, and nobody's looking at what are we doing to our kids? How are we bringing this through? How can we support the next few generations of sports people where their airway gives them a bloody chance? And that's why we're seeing so many people now taking up nasal strips or magnetic things which aren't really as good.
See, that was my point, that I'm struggling to believe how two cannot be better. When you see elite athletes and they're working at maximum capacity, surely as much oxygen as you can get in once you've trained it to be more efficient. So I can see the benefits of taping it up, but I just think it's got to be more efficient once you've trained it up to then breathe in through both.
There's a point at a certain zone. So if you speak to kind of pro cyclists that really go for nasal breathing, they'll go through zone 2, zone 3, maybe even up to like the edge, and then they'll kind of be like, okay, at this point, I'll mouth breathe.
That's what
now,
I mean.
I don't train like that. I have no interest in using my mouth.
The general person, though, you make it efficient and then you use both. Because that was I used to use a nasal strip, and I remember somebody saying to me once, well, why do you do that? Because you only get 3% more oxygen in if you use one of those. And I was thinking, well, 3% is actually quite a lot when I'm operating at the top level. Yeah. So even if it is only that, it's still a benefit to get more into your system.
And to give an idea of like the finesse of this, so I have a client called Millie Cousins who I'm allowed to kind of talk about, and she's a pro cyclist and has just got her white jersey and done incredibly well, and she's just turned 22, and she came to me at a point where she was like, my recovery isn't quite as good, so altitude wise I can't quite get to the same level as other people in the altitude hotel rooms. So I was like, okay, cool, well, let's have a look at your breathing. And we looked through, and to most people they'd be like, there's no problem. You've got expansion, you're not sort of looking like you're excessively breathing. She did mouth breathe. She's also got a slimmer face like myself, so it's that impact in the nasal airway. But she's trained really hard, and she knows how to get through the pain of the breath, basically. She's had to. She knows nothing else. So she's kind of at an advantage in that point, that anything uncomfortable she's already well used to. But when she changed how she started to think about her posture in chairs when she's in hotel rooms, all those times outside. So we did 80% of her training just as a human being, and I'd have her down the park, and we'd be running and things. But then we did like a CO2 tolerance test, and I was better than her. I am nowhere near as fit as the pro cyclist. And yet, over a few weeks, she was then suddenly like, right, now my CO2 tolerance is way better than yours. And I've got all of these adjustive things in my recovery practice. So when she went to the Tour de France, she was like, my recovery is so much better. And, and then went to Kigali in Rwanda, was at elevation. It was like, yeah, it was tough because, but it could have been a lot worse. And so it's those things. And I'm not putting a measurement or a percentage or a stats, because I don't really work with digital stuff so much. I'm much more about how do you feel, where are you adjusting your body, what's the awareness. But she's a good example of someone who's like, she's putting everything to her training. She's already going to do brilliantly, but she's also got an impacted airway. So she does use nose and mouth, but she does now use nasal strips and it opens up. But she's always recovering through the nose, and she's using the nose whenever she can during the race. And that's the key of just doing the best you can with what you've got and not thinking, well, you have to have an airway like somebody else.
Brilliant. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you both so much. We haven't
Thank you
really
for
got
having
time
us.
for any more.
thank you.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
We could keep chatting about
We
it
would
for a
keep
while.
going, but sorry. Yeah.
But Thomas
Our
is
producer's
great.
like, yeah, sorry. I'll sit up straight. I'll get better shoes. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Very much. And thank you. Thank you. Well, that was, I remember it being fascinating at the time, Thommo,
Yeah,
but
it
listening
was.
back to it again, I'm just imagining my face when I was envisaging Eliud Kipchoge running faster with his mouth taped up. I couldn't hide my skepticism of that little bit, but that isn't, of course, what she was trying to say. What she was trying to say was that by doing that, she could train her breathing to be more efficient. And she is, of course, very open at the fact that she's not actually an elite runner by any means. She's just trying to teach herself to breathe more efficiently. And that's why she was trying to practice what she preached by taping up her mouth for the session, which you witnessed.
No, yeah, it was. It's a bit of a conversation killer, but that was the kind of the running joke at the moment. But like you say, I think we can all be a little bit more efficient in all areas. That's why, as runners, we're all trying to be efficient. We might train our endurance a lot, but there's always ways you can get that little bit extra. I think the basis, like, she's coming from an angle where, and she is fascinating with this. There's a lot of stuff that happens at childhood that then can carry on through your lives, through tongue ties and all these things. And I think she's been quite impacted by a lot of these. So she's gone on this journey to learn and understand it. And it's fascinating when she goes into it, and it's all kind of backed by very good science and stuff. And I think and it's little things that, like you touched upon, that when you are an elite athlete, you kind of, especially with the Kipchoge, you get there for a reason that you can breathe pretty close to pretty efficient. And I was thinking, I was driving home without realizing it, and I had my mouth shut the whole drive home.
I did the same.
Did you do that? And I was just
And I was thinking I'd go to sleep and I do the same. And then I thought I'd try it on the run as well.
Yes, but again, it's kind of, I'm sure I'm in the 90%. There's always ways you can be that, and she did show me a few techniques where I could be that little bit more efficient. But I did have a conversation with someone going, I'm not sure about this, and it's not about, it's like anything. It's what works for you and how much it affects you as a person, and then how much you explore and what you need to do. And I think that's where it's brilliant, is the fact that there's certainly athletes I've worked with that have had breathing issues, and they're still an elite athlete, and it's an area that we've worked on in the past with trying to improve that. So
because one of the questions I asked, which I didn't really feel that she did answer, but I was probably unfair in asking Jane because she's not been in that situation, was there something that athletes could do, say at a marathon when you're really struggling, something you could do with your breathing to get back in control of it? And so then that got me thinking, I wonder if the actual pushing the tongue to the roof of your mouth thing that she was talking about would help for a little bit. So I did try actually running uphill, and it was hard to keep my mouth shut the whole way up, but I did feel better the minute I opened my mouth again, and it did help me to kind of get back in control and focus a little bit more. So I don't know if that's maybe something, maybe people can try it out a little bit and see. I know that you've talked about, haven't you, that you really focus on the breath in, breath out. Is that you that said that?
I can't remember. I do use kind of deep breaths mid race or whatever to calm myself down, and I use deep breaths to kind of flush lactate out. So I think, because Laura Muir, when we spoke with her, made an interesting, because she was at the weekend, and I can't remember if we were on the pod, but she mentioned how when she's feeling, when things are hard, she just knows she can dig deeper. And she's obviously very good at going to the well. My reaction when I get tired is to go the other direction of trying to flush my system to go again. So because I always found myself when I was young, when I tried to dig deeper, that I found myself slow down more because I tensed. And it works for someone like Laura, that works. For me, I had to go the other way and had to relax to get quicker. And so I would try and take a deep breath, flush my system, especially in the marathon, because you can feel overwhelmed, but some of that overwhelmedness can actually be more through a mental panic than necessarily a physical one. And so the breathing is the thing that connects the two. So I can totally get, and I do feel the pushing my tongue up does open something.
Yeah,
Again,
I find even when your nose is a little bit blocked, doing that just helps to clear it anyway, just with allergies or whatever reason.
It's just the snort. Do you snore?
I don't know because I'm always asleep.
So you've never had
No,
complaints?
I have actually. Yes, I do if I've got a cold, not all the time, but if I
See, I'm the same. I've been told it's like when I'm a little bit under the weather, it do. So that makes me think that I'm not sleeping with my mouth open as well. But again, because like you say, I don't watch myself sleep. Although Gemma has recorded me snoring just to prove I do it sometimes. But that's another story. Anyway, Nick.
go on to the honours board. Oh no, we're going to talk about
Nick,
Nick first, of course. Yeah,
I was going
Nick
to
was
say,
fascinating.
I'd love to talk more with him because and again, he said to me afterwards when we talked a bit about the difference between sprinting and distance and the implications around why we're not seeing the seismic jumps. And he said to me afterwards he really enjoyed that kind of line of questioning and challenging that thought process because he understands it brilliantly. But as how the implications in sport are still kind of being ironed out a little bit, which is why he loves that kind of questioning, and I think it would be really great to kind of dig a bit deeper and into that because I really enjoyed it.
I think the whole shoe thing is moving on so fast, and it's all of the understanding that comes in around that. So that was one point that I was going to mention. Now I'm just reaching down. So as part of the the Nike Science Lab, they've done some research into the mind and like meditation.
Oh, I've
so
seen this.
these. So these are like little balls. So I mean they're quite difficult to make. I think these shoes because they're actually like quite funky sliders. But
like
by walking around in them, they've proven that it sends relaxation waves up to your brain. I can't remember what there was a scientific term for them, which basically is similar to meditation. So now Sifan and I did say, well, we're pretty much meditating while we're running. But this does relax you.
Oh, you run in
just
them?
by walking. No, you walk around in them. You don't run in them.
Okay.
You walk around in them and ideally barefoot, and it stimulates the sensors all the way up to your brain. So it doesn't have any muscular impact. It is the brain waves. In helping your mind to just relax, and it's been proven to on the footballers. They've done a lot of research. It's been proven to get them in the right state of mind before the game. So I'm trying that out now. So I'm actually sitting here rolling my foot on the floor, seeing if that helps me think more clearly. I do feel it. Yeah. I think more time with Nick maybe in the future, certainly in that marathon build up, would be a good idea to explain more about how those shoes and how you pick your ideal marathon shoe. Because I am conscious that because we were squashing in time at the Rutland training camp, we maybe didn't get as much time with Nick as we would have liked.
No, exactly. I think both of them had a lot to offer, and it was kind to them. And hopefully, always feel bad trying to share an audience, but we only had so much time on our, like you say, on our hands. But thank you to both of them. They were both awesome guests. They're lovely people as well, and they fit into that kind of weekend excitement and buzz quite brilliantly. And they were very, very approachable for everyone who was there as well to kind of pick their brains a little bit more. And we just kind of a bit of a snippet. Right, honours board.
Yep, so honours board, I'm going to kick it off and hopefully we can drop in a little video here.
Hi, I'm Alice and this is my sister Neve and we've just done the 10k and I've been listening to Paula's pod and she's always said to take it easy on the downhill, save your quads, and I kept that in mind on the day.
And what did you run, Alice?
44:10 or something like that.
Is that a good time?
It's okay, it's not far off a PB, so I'll take it.
I'm putting Alice on the honours board for that because it was very twisty and she used the advice, so thank you, Alice.
My name's Neve and I just got a 10k PB at 14:2:07.
Excellent. There we go. So we've got Eve and Alice on the honours board. Thank you, and thank you for listening.
From the After Dark tour with Alice and Eve, who came up to me as I was handing out the necklaces at the end and said how much they loved listening to the podcast. And Eve had run a personal best and Alice had come very close to it and had built back through the race using a lot of the techniques that we shared. So I'm going to nominate Alice and Eve. I'm afraid I don't have your contact details for the High Five goodies. And of course, the Honours Board is sponsored with huge thanks to High Five, who will keep you covered for hydration and for fueling in through your marathon build up, through whatever you're building up for. So Alice and Eve, if you could email in, I know you listen to the podcast because you told me you do. So hopefully you are listening to this one, and you can email in or WhatsApp us on that +44 7564 747 914 and let us know your contact details so we can get them out to you. Do you have anyone, Thommo?
Yes, I do. Yes, I have Paul Hogland. Hello, Chris and Paul. The podcast keeps getting better and better. Thank you very much. I'd like to nominate a couple of people for the Honours Board. The first is my running buddy, Dan Burt, who is at the recent Toronto Marathon, took a whopping 14 minutes off his marathon PB down to 3:08:13 and now has a sub 3 hour time firmly in his sights. Very good. The second, and maybe a future podcast, is Dame Kelly Holmes, who has become a fully fledged Parkroom Cult member, having completed a Alpha Beta at Jersey. What's Alpha Beta at Jersey? Wrong. The podcast host has completed Alpha Beta at Jersey on Saturday in another sub 20 minutes. I wonder if that is the alphabet for park runs.
Oh, yes, yeah. I think you might be right there. Yeah, it's running one park run for every letter of the alphabet, isn't it?
That's really cool.
Very good. Well done, Kelly. We think you've got enough goodies, so I'm not sure she needs any High Five goodies. We'll send those to Dan, though. And thank you, Paul, for nominating Dan and Kelly for that. And congratulations, Dame Kelly, on those performances. Yeah, another sub 20 minutes. Amazing.
That's a lot. That is a lot. Well done. Yeah.
And final Honours Board for this week is actually, it's a re-nomination, so I'm not sure she needs any more goodies, but just a quick reminder and a congratulations to Rebecca Flaherty. If you remember, Thommo, her and her mum Sarah broke the record for the fastest mother and daughter at the Great North Run.
Yes, I do.
The combined time. And Rebecca finished 5th in the under 23 at the weekend at Liverpool. So she was super happy with that. And while we're on the subject of Liverpool, let's just quickly add in or shout out for next week's guest in the run-up to the European Cross Country Championships, and that will be Innes Fitzgerald, who did win by an absolute mile, and you were there to watch, and you did get a little bit of a snippet, and so there will be a special cameo appearance from the man behind the camera that we'll just tease that now, and you can find out who he is next week if you tune in.
No, well, do you know what it was? And I'm sure you probably had this a bit when you were growing up, but there's something quite incredible watching an athlete like Innes in motion at the time, and in cross country, because it's not on a track. There's an aura about seeing a minute gap on a cross country compared to a track, and when she went past, it was just all I could hear was people going, "Whoa." There was like, when you're in the midst of the race, everyone's going, "Go on," cheering, clapping. But with Innes going past, she had such a lead. It was just like, whoa, just this complete aura that she had going around the course. But she ran brilliantly. And do you know what? Afterwards, I said to her, "Can we get a quick clip to insert?" She was buzzing. She got her coach, to come over.
Oh, you're just giving it away.
She got someone to come over and I don't know, oopsie. But no, she, do you know what? She was just so buzzing to have come on, and it was just lovely. And I think a lot of people, especially young aspiring athletes, can take a lot from her because she is so good. She's been to the World Championships, and you could be forgiven to think someone was almost having felt needs to be someone different to kind of take on this higher level of pressure, but she's not. She's just lovely, relaxed, so friendly. She's walking around the course, very approachable to everyone, and she's just a really good person. And she got a great team around her with someone who may not have been behind the camera, and she said she'd come on any time and in the future and talk about it. Just fingers crossed for her in Portugal.
And you can listen to that full episode with Innes next week and get more of an insight into probably why she is such a great cross-country runner. That is where she started out, and she tells us all about that. So that will be in next week's episode. That is just about all that we
Just
have.
quickly though, because I didn't. Apologies. Did you say you mentioned that Rebecca, she was fifth in the under-23, made the team as well?
Yes,
Hopefully.
yeah.
So she will be in Portugal in the under-23 race. So well done. I'm not sure if I'm going yet or not, but if I am, then I'll try and find her. Huh?
Did you run?
I can see the sarcasm in your face. For those listening and not watching,
Going to watch.
there's a huge amount of sarcasm beaming out of Paula's face right now. No, I didn't run, Paul. I did run in the morning. I ran 5 miles in the morning. I ran to the new Everton Stadium and back from my hotel, went to the course, but no, I'm hopefully going to go as a spectator, but yeah. But you and I, that was one of our meeting grounds.
Wait a minute. You didn't run by Anfield?
No, I was on the docks, so I went.
They're right next door to each other, aren't they? Oh,
No,
no, the old one was near.
the new stadium.
Sorry.
No, it wasn't. Yeah.
I was thinking, why, as a Liverpool fan, you ran to Everton Stadium?
Well, it's just because it was en route. I wasn't specifically like.
It's all right. Raf will continue speaking to you. It's fine.
Yeah, but I will add, our illustrious producer Mark today is a Forest fan. Oh no, he lives in Nottingham, but he's not a Forest fan. So we made friends again after the 3-0 drubbing from Forest on the weekend. Anyway.
Oh well.
Topic.
No, it is Steve Cram training week, so we'll allow the football diversion for this week.
I mean, crikey, I can't believe how well Sunderland are doing at the moment. It's incredible. But yeah, all good.
Anyway, moving on from Sunderland. They're actually doing a Hogmanay race. A little bit of a shout out for that, and a little bit of a trail for anybody fancies a fun New Year's Eve shakeout. They are doing one, so head along to Extra Mile Events and Events of the North and see what they've got going on there. And that is all we've got time for this week, I'm afraid. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Paula's Run Club. Don't forget, you get that interview with Ines Fitzgerald dropping next week, along with the Honours Board then, and we have the shakeout coming up this Thursday. This Honours Board is sponsored by High Five. Thank you so much, High Five, for all of your support. They will be sending out the goodies to people nominated for the Honours Board, and don't forget that you have that discount code Paula25. So head to highfive.co.uk and you can use the discount code to get yourself some money off all of their goodies. Thank you for listening. This has been a Momentum broadcast production.